More than 2 million people die every year from waterborne diseases. Most of them are children below 5 years of age.
We have millions of people in the United States. Every morning they get up and turn on the tap, not knowing that there's rocket fuel in their water supply.
There's really been a concerted effort to mischaracterize the degree of the threat that's facing us.
We have wars going on in the world over oil because of pricing of oil. And if we take the same path with water, that's oil all over again.
The world is running out of fresh water. People will do anything. They'll give anything, their life savings, their house, anything for water.
Without water, we have nothing. Without water, we have no life. We have no culture. We have no society. We have no economy. Without water, the earth wouldn't be what it is.
When you think about our planet, it is one huge living body because of the water that flows through it. And across the land masses, you can have veins of water and arteries of water flowing. This flows into our ocean, which is the heart of our Earth. And it exhales. It evaporates water and puts water back into the hydrologic cycle, which then again goes up to the mountaintops and again comes down in the form of veins and arteries. So our planet is just one huge living body with water constantly circulating through it, and it is the water that gives it life. We too are like the surface of our planet, 70% water and 30% solid. We too have a heart. We have 60,000 miles of veins and arteries. And just like the earth recycles the water, we have a water cycle within us.
The United States does not keep active records of how many people get sick from our water supply every year. There are estimates that from 500,000 to 7 million people get sick per year from drinking their tap water.
One of the problems is that we have lots of bugs in the system. Viruses, pathogens, bacteria. A lot of those things that you think of as stomach viruses or flus, about 40% of those come from your drinking water.
We are not removing things like industrial chemicals, rocket fuel, pesticides, certain pharmaceuticals, drugs that were discharged either by big animal factories or by sewage treatment plants. A lot of people think they don't have to worry about their water supply because they go out and buy bottled water. Well, we have news for them. In fact, a lot of your exposure to many of the chemicals comes from the simple act of showering in them. So some of these more volatile pollutants come in through your skin.
There are over 116,000 human-made chemicals. We have no idea how they interact. We are becoming experiments for these synthetic chemicals. And when the liver takes these chemicals out of our bodies, what happens? They get flushed down the toilet. And then they go into the aquifer. And then they go into our rivers and streams. We take the water from the rivers and streams, and we put it into our public water supply systems, and we're drinking it again.
All those pharmaceuticals, all those cosmetics, all the stuff that's in there, you know what? It's changing the chemistry in our bodies, and it's hurting us.
For the last 30 years, since the Green Revolution brought chemical agriculture to India, there are two problems that it has created for water systems. The first problem is the crops are actually highly inefficient in water use. They need lots of water to dissolve the chemicals, and that means 5 to 10 times more water is used to produce the same amount of food.
70% de la consommation mondiale est d'origine agricole, 20% d'origine industrielle, 10% les usagers domestiques. C'est les usages agricoles et industriels qui font qu'on a besoin de plus en plus d'eau pour faire pousser les choses qui ne devraient pas pousser à tel endroit. Et évidemment, pour faire pousser tout ça, il faut aussi des engrais, des produits phytosanitaires, de la chimie. Et évidemment, la chimie avec l'eau et dans les terres, ça ne fait pas bon ménage. Aujourd'hui, y compris dans des analyses qui sont rendues non publiques, on s'aperçoit que par exemple l'eau de la Seine, mais on s'est rendu compte que dans les 5 dernières années dans l'eau de Seine, les poissons avaient changé de sexe. Il n'y avait que des femelles, et puis il n'y a plus de mâles. Le problème c'est qu'on n'a pas de solution, puisqu'on faut toujours boire de l'eau. Hein. Même si vous croyez en Dieu, malheureusement la pollution elle est diffuse. Hein.
We mustn't forget that these chemicals were designed for warfare. They are the ultimate weapons of mass destruction. Every one of them came out of the war system. Now they are in our drinking water.
Ça peut paraître exagéré, franchement ça ne l'est pas. Et tout ça c'est pas dans 50 ans, dans 100 ans, on est en pleine actualité.
People assume that there's somebody in the government protecting their water supply, and that's often not the case. One of the most extraordinary examples of that is the most common pesticide sprayed in the United States, atrazine.
Atrazine itself is an herbicide, or a weed killer, and it's used on products such as corn. It is the #1 contaminant found in drinking water, and groundwater, and surface water. Initially, we were contracted by Syngenta, the makers of atrazine, and their interest was in trying to understand whether or not, so they said, whether or not atrazine could function as an endocrine disruptor, meaning could it interfere with hormones such as thyroid hormone, testosterone, estrogen. We found that atrazine had a number of effects, but most significantly, atrazine demasculinized the exposed male frogs. I would even say chemically castrated. We went on to show that in addition to being demasculinized, they were also feminized. So in other words, male amphibians would grow ovaries and even produce eggs. Fish show similar effects. Their sperm counts drop and they start to make egg yolk protein. Does that mean that atrazine is causing a global decline in sperm counts in men? Again, the experimental and the epidemiological data suggest that atrazine may play a very significant role. It's also associated with prostate cancer and some of the factories that produce atrazine, as well as with breast cancer and some studies that look at women whose water is contaminated with atrazine. One big concern might be fetuses that, in effect, are living in water. So if that fetus gets exposed to a chemical, it's constantly drinking its amniotic fluid. In the entire European Union, atrazine has been banned. And in effect, that is the only way you can limit atrazine levels because it can travel up to 600 miles, 1,000 kilometers in the rainwater. In fact, of the 80 million pounds of atrazine we use in the United States, about 500,000 pounds of that atrazine comes back in the rainwater. And the irony is, I guess, that here's a European company selling 80 million pounds of a product in the United States where it's not even legal in the home country.
When the Environmental Protection Agency under the Bush administration decided that it needed to at least appear to do something about the problem after we sued them, they ended up sitting down with the people that made atrazine in private negotiations. They met over 50 times privately with the company, and they cut a deal. No crackdown, no enforcement action, no banning the pesticide.
I've never seen blood like this. They're just pouring this stuff right in. This is going into Lake Titicaca, which is the sacred lake to the indigenous peoples here.
We can see that because that's the part that it's open.
Of course.
But you don't see the whole thing that they are doing to the river
what they're
here.
going to do here is they're going to divert it.
Yeah, and they're
under
just
this
going to
cement.
cover. Yeah.
They're not going to clean it up. They just, it won't be so ugly and open.
Yes.
It'll still smell the way it
Yeah.
smells.
Y precisamente se tenía que embovedar a la fuerza este río porque hay mal olor porque sale del matadero. La sangre, todo lo que carnean el ganado. Esa agua sucia echan los vecinos. No tenemos alcantarillado en algunas zonas. Entonces esos vecinos a la fuerza tienen que salir a los riachuelos para hacer su necesidad.
So let me understand. Suez said they put an $80 million treatment facility here. Not only did they not do that, but they've diverted the raw sewage into this river that goes into Lake Titicaca.
Yeah, this is a river that crosses all the city. So it's around the city that they are doing the same thing.
Traditionally, water has been delivered as a public service by governments. But in the last 10 years, 3 major water companies from Europe have started delivering water on a for-profit basis in many parts of the world. They are very powerful. They're all among the top 100 corporations, Fortune 500 companies. They're very wealthy. They're growing very fast. And basically, developing countries, poor countries, are being forced all over the world to hand over basic control of their water systems to a for-profit multinational from Europe or far away.
Suez is one of the 2 world leaders in the water distribution, water treatment in the world.
I'm working with a French company, a large water operator called Vivendi Environment.
We are active in more than 100 different countries.
We are active since 150 years. So we are a very long-term operator in water business.
Esa agua es el agua de Limani, pero el agua de aquí está contaminada. Ahorita está saliendo limpio, hace rato han visto que estaba negro el agua. Ahora, un poco más tarde, el agua ya viene con gusanos. Así, jugando en la calle, vienen aquí, se reciben y toman esa agua. Entonces, esa agua les hace daño.
El objetivo de la privatización fue el de dotar del servicio de agua potable y alcantarillado en las ciudades de La Paz y El Alto. Pero durante todo este proceso evidenciamos que solamente en la ciudad del Alto quedan excluidos 208,000 personas del servicio de agua potable.
No tenemos ni agua, ni luz. Ahí está, con esta polvadera se nos ensucia la ropa más. Y hasta nos trata de que somos tan sucios. No es porque uno quiere, sino que porque no hay agua.
Gente humilde, ¿no? Algunos apenas se hacen alcanzar para consumo. Y si vamos a hacer privatizar, la gente de dónde va a traer dinero.
Nosotros hemos dicho que Aguas del Illimani se tiene que ir. Vecinos no tienen agua, no tienen alcantarillado.
Como ustedes posiblemente se han enterado mediante la prensa en sus países, nosotros aquí en Bolivia estamos llegando a sufrir.
Pueden comprarle a nuestro dirigente, pero no nos van a comprar a todos.
This is a country in which nearly 1 out of every 10 children will die before the age of 5. And most of those deaths are related to illnesses that come from a lack of clean drinking water. So when people of El Alto say enough with water privatization, it's because if they don't have access to clean drinking water, their children's health is at risk. Why did Bolivia privatize the water systems of Cochabamba and El Alto? It's not like Bolivian citizens decided it was a good idea. Water privatization was absolutely forced on Bolivia by the World Bank. In 1997, the World Bank told Bolivia that if they did not privatize the water system of Cochabamba and El Alto La Paz, that they were going to be cut off from water development loans by the World Bank.
Yo creo que esa es la privatización para nosotros una lucha contra la muerte, ¿no? la lucha por la vida, porque la vida siga siendo una vida donde nuestros hijos, nuestros nietos, nosotros podamos disfrutarla, ¿no? Es una lucha entre una vida digna, una vida con alegría o una vida con sometimiento, una vida con amargura, con angustia, con inseguridad, que no es vida.
Ngo-2000 ngoSeptemba mhla 19 wagula waphathwa yisisu. Shuthi wagula nje 3 days. Shuthi kwakwenziwa amanzi siwasebenzisayo. Amanzi nje angahlanzekile sasiwakha emfuleni. Kusho ukuthi nje ngingabe ukuthi njengoba ngimdala la ekhaya ngizizwa ngumuntu ogqilazeke kakhulu. Abafundayo engazi ukuthi ngabafundisa ngani kanjani ngabondla ngani kanjani.
Akukho ukusithembisa okungcono ngoba nakho lokho okuzayo okwemali vele okuphoqa ukuthi imali uma ungenayo ugcina futhi ubuyelile khona emfuleni. Phindela khona lapho emfuleni ungcolile. Bake bafika basitshela ukuthi funa mangabe sibuya kowakha siwenze njani. Kokungabe ezempilo. Shuthi akwenele ngoba manje ngisho ungawakha nakho vele lokho abathi asikusebenzise kuyimali. Imali mayingekho akho into ongayenza. Kuyikho ukuthi vese phuze wona njengoba enjalo. Esisuke sisaba kodwa uma amanzi engekho ayikho into ongayenza. Yikho kuvela uphuze khona lokho noma ukwazi thi.
We have waiting here 5 hours. Sometimes that water comes, sometimes they don't come. Sometimes we can spend 4 weeks without water. Yeah, every day we can come and open. Nothing, there's nothing.